Hey, this is me, Myron Golden. Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens of potential, hear me clearly. You were not born to be average. You were not created to struggle your way through life like a leaf being blown by the winds of circumstance. You were designed, destined, and divinely equipped to dominate your environment, to create change, and to leave a legacy that echoes in eternity. But here's the truth. Potential is worthless without pressure. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Steel is hardened by fire. And champions? Champions are forged by force, not comfort. Potential is one of the most over-celebrated qualities in our culture. From the moment we're young, people point to it like it's the ultimate validation. You've got so much potential. You could be great someday. And while that may feel good to hear, the truth is potential by itself is completely useless. It's a seed with no soil, a blueprint with no builder, a vision with no movement. It doesn't matter how much potential you have if you never put it under pressure. Pressure is the divine process that activates what's dormant inside of you. You can sit around dreaming about greatness for years, but unless you step into uncomfortable, high-demand situations, you'll never unlock the strength, creativity, or clarity that your potential holds. It's only when you're tested, when you're stretched, when you're challenged to your limits, that your potential gets converted into real capacity. Think of a lump of coal. It's full of potential. But unless that coal is placed under intense pressure and heat, it never becomes a diamond. And yet most people spend their lives avoiding pressure. They want ease, they want comfort, they want peace without process. But greatness is forged, not found. And forging requires fire. You don't know how much power you actually have until life requires you to use it. That's why the people who achieve the most in life aren't always the smartest, the strongest, or the most connected. They're the ones who are willing to submit to pressure. They're the ones who embrace difficult situations as training grounds for transformation. While others run from challenge, they run toward it. Pressure is the environment where discipline is born. You don't develop self-control when things are easy. You develop it when everything inside of you wants to quit, and you force yourself to keep going. That moment of resistance, when your comfort is on one side and your calling is on the other, that's where potential begins to evolve into power. So many people pray for strength, not realizing that strength comes through strain. You don't get stronger by talking about your muscles. You get stronger by pushing against something heavy. Pressure is not a punishment. It's a prerequisite. The weight is not there to crush you. It's there to condition you. Pressure also reveals what you believe about yourself. When you're under stress, when deadlines are closing in, when resources are tight, when the stakes are high, that's when the real version of you shows up. You discover if you truly believe you're capable, or if you've just been reciting affirmations with no conviction. Pressure strips away the noise and exposes the truth. Most people try to pray the pressure away instead of leaning into it. They ask God to remove the challenge instead of asking Him to give them the strength to rise through it. But growth doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from alignment, aligning your action with your assignment, even when that action is uncomfortable. Pressure teaches you how to focus. When everything is on the line, you stop entertaining distractions. You start to value your time, your energy, your associations. You begin to cut away what doesn't serve your purpose because pressure demands clarity. It forces you to identify what matters most. In the pressure zone, your skills are refined. Your decision-making sharpens. You no longer have the luxury of indecision. You learn to trust your instincts. You learn to move with purpose. You develop an internal rhythm that no one can give you. It only comes from experience, from pushing through resistance over and over again. Pressure forces your potential to come out of hiding. Everyone can dream in theory, but when you're required to deliver in real time, something shifts. That hidden genius, that buried resilience, that quiet creativity, it all comes to the surface under the weight of demand. You begin to operate on a level you didn't know existed. You'll never know how far you can go until the circumstances demand your full effort. Pressure introduces you to your future self. It doesn't just test your capacity, it expands it. What felt impossible yesterday becomes your new normal because pressure has increased your tolerance and stretched your belief. Under pressure, excuses lose their power. When there's no room for delay, you stop explaining and start executing. You don't have time to justify your procrastination, you just act. And in that action, you develop momentum. And momentum is the compound interest of pressure. One push leads to another, and soon you're doing what used to intimidate you without hesitation. Pressure has a way of revealing what you truly value. Do you value your vision enough to suffer for it? Do you value growth enough to endure discomfort? Do you value legacy enough to let go of convenience? These are the questions that pressure asks, and how you answer them determines the level you rise to. Every breakthrough you admire was born through pressure. Every invention, every innovation, every movement that changed the world was birthed in an atmosphere where someone was willing to be stretched beyond what was comfortable. Nothing extraordinary has ever been produced without the presence of pressure. People often say they're waiting for the right time, but the right time never comes without tension. There's never going to be a moment when everything feels perfect. That's why pressure is a gift. It creates urgency. It pulls greatness out of you now, not someday, not when you feel ready, but in the middle of resistance. If you want your life to count, you must be willing to step into the fire. You must be willing to sacrifice the illusion of ease for the reality of excellence. Comfort feels good for a moment, but pressure produces results that last generations. Every time you choose pressure over passivity, you invest in your own transformation. There's no shortcut, there's no bypass, there's no version of success doesn't require struggle. Potential without pressure is like a treasure chest locked away in the basement. It has value, but it will never impact anyone until it's brought to the surface, cracked open, and used. Feelings are the most deceptive compass you can follow in your pursuit of success. They fluctuate with the weather, with your mood, with how much sleep you got the night before. One moment you feel motivated, and the next you feel overwhelmed. If you live by your feelings, you'll live a life of inconsistency, starting everything and finishing nothing. Feelings whisper comfort, but comfort never built empires. Discipline, on the other hand, is the foundation of every significant accomplishment. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for your opinion. It doesn't wait for inspiration. Discipline shows up. It executes. It repeats. It stays when motivation disappears. And in that staying, it builds something real, something feelings could never sustain on their own. There's a reason feelings are seductive. They make you believe that avoiding hard things is protecting you, but it's not protection, it's paralysis. Feelings say you deserve to rest when discipline knows you haven't earned it yet. Feelings say you're too tired when discipline reminds you that your energy is a resource, not a reason to stop. If you let feelings make your decisions, you'll train your mind to associate pressure with pain and delay with relief. But discipline flips that script. It trains your brain to see discomfort as opportunity. Discipline says, this is hard, but it's making me stronger. Discipline reprograms your internal dialogue so that adversity doesn't break you, it builds you. Most people confuse self-care with self-sabotage. They skip the workout because they don't feel up to it. They avoid the meeting because they don't feel confident. but they never realize those repeated emotional decisions become habits, and that habit is the silent killer of progress. Discipline is the only antidote to emotional inconsistency. Discipline doesn't require permission from your emotions. It doesn't consult your anxiety or negotiate with your doubts. It simply says, let's go, whether you're ready or not, whether you're in the mood or not. Because discipline understands that excellence is not a mood. It's a commitment made daily, often in silence, with no applause. Feelings want to keep you safe. Discipline wants to make you capable. Feelings want you to avoid failure. Discipline wants you to face it until you win. Feelings say, slow down, take it easy. Discipline says, you can rest when the mission is complete. And the more you choose discipline, the less influence your feelings will have over your future. You cannot trust your feelings in the face of purpose. Purpose demands movement when feelings want to pause. Purpose demands sacrifice when feelings demand comfort. If you want to become who you were created to be, you must stop asking your feelings for permission and start giving your discipline the steering wheel. Every goal you've abandoned had one thing in common, a moment where you felt like quitting and you obeyed that feeling. The real battle isn't in the circumstances, it's in that decision. Will I choose what I feel, or will I choose what I committed to? One of those options leads to regret. The other leads to reward. Discipline doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it produces fruit that lasts. It builds credibility with yourself. Every time you choose discipline, you reinforce the truth. I can count on me. And that internal trust becomes the bedrock of confidence, because confidence doesn't come from hype, it comes from consistency. Feelings may offer you short-term relief, but discipline gives you long-term results. You may feel better temporarily when you skip the hard thing, but you'll always be stuck in the same cycle. Discipline breaks the loop. It creates momentum. And momentum is built on doing the right thing repeatedly, not just when you feel like it. The most successful people aren't immune to emotions. They feel fear, doubt, laziness, and distraction just like everyone else. The difference is they've trained their discipline to be stronger than their feelings. They've practiced choosing what aligns with their purpose over what aligns with their present mood. Discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. At first, it may feel like you're forcing yourself. You are. But eventually, the discipline becomes automatic. It becomes a part of your identity. And when that happens, feelings lose their control over you because you're no longer ruled by temporary states. You're governed by eternal standards. People often wait for motivation to act. But waiting for motivation is like waiting for a spark in a storm. It's unreliable. Discipline doesn't wait. It creates momentum through motion. Once you start moving, your feelings begin to catch up. And over time, discipline changes your emotional chemistry. What used to feel hard becomes your new normal. Your emotions will always present excuses wrapped in logic. It's not the right time. You're too tired. You've already done enough today. But if you listen closely, you'll realize those excuses are fear in disguise. Discipline, however, sees through the noise. It doesn't need to feel ready to begin. It just begins. Feelings make promises they don't keep. They say you'll feel better tomorrow, but tomorrow looks exactly like today. Discipline doesn't make empty promises. It delivers results. It builds day by day, layer by layer, choice by choice. It may be invisible at first, but eventually the evidence becomes undeniable. If you rely on feelings to guide your life, you'll always live in reaction. Discipline allows you to live in creation. Instead of reacting to mood swings and emotional dips, you build a life based on principles, on truth, on vision. Discipline puts you in the driver's seat, no longer a passenger of emotional unpredictability. The longer you practice discipline, the more you realize it's not about restriction, it's about liberation. You're not depriving yourself, you're freeing yourself from the bondage of inconsistency, distraction, and stagnation. Discipline gives you your time back. It gives you your focus, your power, your future. Feelings take. Discipline gives. And that difference changes everything. Intention is where dreams begin. It's the seed of every vision, the place where ideas are born. Everyone has intentions. Everyone has thoughts about changing their life, starting a business, getting fit, writing a book, healing a relationship, or stepping into their purpose. But intentions, no matter how pure or powerful, mean nothing without movement. They are thoughts with no structure, plans with no push, blueprints with no build. The real problem is not that people lack goals. It's that they never develop the force required to bring those goals into reality. Force is the missing piece between what you want and what you actually get. It's the internal power that transforms a wish into work, a hope into hustle, a plan into performance. Without force, all you're doing is fantasizing. Force is not about aggression. It's about decision. It's about applying pressure to your life in the direction of your purpose. Intention alone is passive. It waits, it imagines, it dreams, but force steps in and says, enough planning, now we move. It disrupts your patterns of hesitation and demands action where you've been avoiding responsibility. Many people confuse waiting for the right time with being wise, but often that waiting is just fear in disguise. Intention feels safe. It's clean. It's exciting. You can talk about it, write it down, share it with friends, but execution is messy. It's inconvenient. It costs you time, energy, and comfort. That's why force is necessary, because without it, you'll choose intention over execution every time. Force doesn't ask for permission from your emotions. It doesn't need the circumstances to be perfect. Force moves in spite of delay. It challenges resistance. It pushes through fatigue, confusion, and fear. It is the active commitment to act regardless of how you feel. It says, I'm doing this, not because it's easy, but because it's essential. There will always be a gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do. That gap is filled by force. It's the engine that drives your body into alignment with your goals. It's the voice that says, get up when you'd rather stay in bed. It's the hand that opens the laptop, makes the call, hits the gym, writes the page. It's the only bridge that gets you from talking to doing. The longer you stay stuck in intention, the harder execution becomes. The more you think without moving, the more fear grows. The more you analyze without acting, the more paralyzed you become. That's why force is not optional, it's vital. Without it, you'll build a habit of hesitation that will rob you of every breakthrough you're meant to experience. Force creates movement, and movement creates clarity. Too many people wait to feel certain before they act. But certainty doesn't come first. Action comes first. Clarity shows up in the process. As you move, you learn. As you apply force, you gain feedback, and that feedback refines your execution. But it all begins with force. There's a reason high performers don't rely on mood. They understand that force is a discipline. It's the decision to obey your vision when your feelings offer excuses. It's the practice of choosing progress over passivity. And like a muscle, the more you use force, the more natural it becomes. It won't always feel like pressure. Eventually it becomes your new pattern. Force builds momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful assets you can possess. When you're in motion, you bypass the resistance that usually comes at the starting line. One forced action today can spark a chain reaction of decisions that move you forward faster than any amount of planning ever could. Force is the reason some people seem unstoppable. It's not because they're more talented or more fortunate. It's because they've learned to initiate movement without emotional validation. They don't wait to feel ready. They push through the friction and move. That pattern compounds over time and builds a life of results instead of regret. Execution without force feels impossible. There will always be friction between your current self and your future self. Force is what breaks that barrier. It refuses to let your comfort zone become your coffin. It creates internal tension, not to destroy you, but to develop you. That tension pulls you out of comfort and into calling. There are moments in life where force is the only answer. When you're stuck in cycles of procrastination, force breaks the rhythm. When you're flooded with doubt, force steps in as proof of your decision to move anyway. It's not just effort. It's intentional pressure that says, my action matters more than my emotion. Force doesn't mean rushing blindly. It means showing up consistently with discipline and intensity. It's the opposite of drifting. Drift leads to decay. Force leads to focus. When you apply force, you regain control of your mind, your choices, and your direction. You stop reacting and start creating. Many people spend years circling the same mountain because they've mastered intention but avoided execution. They talk about change, read about growth, dream about freedom, but never move. Force is the only thing that can break the cycle. It confronts hesitation with decision. It demands a shift, not a suggestion. Force is the fire starter. It's what turns potential energy into kinetic energy. It takes the stored up dreams in your head and sets them in motion. Nothing changes until force is applied. You can't think your way into a new level. You must move your way into it, even when that movement feels like a fight. Once you've felt the power of forced action, you begin to crave it, not because it's comfortable, but because it's effective. You realize that the life you want is not hiding, it's waiting on the other side of your push. The goals you've written down, the habits you've imagined, the vision you've carried in your heart, all of it is possible, but only if you force your way forward. Motivation is loud. It shows up with fireworks, with music, with adrenaline pumping through your veins. It makes you feel like anything is possible in the moment. But motivation is also temporary. It fades as quickly as it comes. One setback, one rough morning, one harsh word, and it disappears like smoke. That's why a life built on motivation is a life built on sand. Obedience to vision, on the other hand, is steady. It's quiet. It's not emotional, but it is unshakable. Obedience doesn't need a hype song or a motivational video. It doesn't require applause or agreement. It simply locks eyes with the vision and says, I'm not moving until I get there. It's not a feeling, it's a decision. Vision is what you see when you close your eyes and imagine the future you were created to live. It's not just an idea, it's an assignment. Vision comes from a deeper place. It doesn't change with your mood or your environment. And obedience is the discipline that honors that vision even when nothing around you supports it. There are days when you will feel nothing, no inspiration, no drive, no excitement. In those moments, motivation will fail you, but obedience will keep you moving. Because obedience says, this is bigger than how I feel. This is about who I'm becoming. This is about what I've been called to do. It's rooted in responsibility, not reaction. Too many people are addicted to being motivated. They wait until they feel like working. They wait until they feel creative or energized or focused. But purpose doesn't wait for feelings. Purpose requires follow-through. Obedience understands that emotions are unreliable indicators of truth. What's true is the vision, and that vision must be obeyed. Obedience is about structure. It's about aligning your daily actions with your ultimate destination. It's about having habits that don't change just because your feelings do. When you obey the vision, your mornings, your rituals, your focus, they all start to serve something larger than you. You begin to move with strategy, not impulse. Motivation often thrives on circumstances. A sunny day, a good mood, a compliment, a win. These things can trigger motivation. But what happens on the days when everything goes wrong? That's when obedience separates the committed from the curious. Obedience doesn't care about the weather, about your energy, or about your doubts. It just works. Obedience is the daily death of excuses. It's the choice to show up again, even when yesterday didn't go your way. It's the refusal to let setbacks cancel your assignment. It teaches you to become emotionally mature, to stop quitting every time it hurts or slows down. It builds character, not just results. When you live by obedience, you become trustworthy to your own destiny. You start to build internal credibility. You know that when you say you're going to do something, you'll do it, even if you don't feel like it. That kind of discipline becomes the soil where greatness grows. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. The people who rise to the top aren't always the most excited. They're the most committed. They obey their vision like it's a command, not a suggestion. They don't make decisions based on the moment. They don't make decisions based on the moment. They act based on the mission. And that's why they last while others burn out. Obedience turns the mundane into meaning. The small actions, the unnoticed work, the hours spent in preparation, they all matter when they're connected to a larger vision. When you're obedient to the call on your life, even the boring parts become sacred. You understand that you're building something eternal with every step. Motivation tells you to move fast. Obedience teaches you to move right. Motivation makes you impulsive. Obedience makes you intentional. With obedience, you stop chasing every shiny thing. You become focused. You learn to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to divine assignments. You stop being distracted by what's urgent and stay loyal to what's important. When you obey the vision, you take responsibility for your destiny. You stop blaming others. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop asking for permission to grow. Obedience creates a flow in your life, a rhythm that becomes stronger than your circumstances. It pulls you forward when life tries to pull you back. Obedience is not glamorous. No one claps for it. It rarely trends, but it's the one trait every champion, every builder, every leader has mastered. It's the choice to do what you said you'd do long after the mood you set it in is gone. It's how dreams are built in real time, quietly, daily, without fanfare. Obedience does the work when no one is watching. It makes the calls, sends the emails, studies the material, sharpens the skill, develops the plan. It understands that consistency beats intensity over time. That finishing matters more than starting. That discipline is the difference between talent and transformation. When motivation dies, obedience remains. That's why the obedient finish what the motivated only start. The obedient become leaders while the motivated stay followers. The obedient fulfill vision while the motivated chase feelings. It's not about being the most fired up. It's about being the most faithful. There will be moments when vision feels distant and the path feels unclear. But obedience doesn't need to see the whole picture. It just needs to take the next step. It trusts the vision enough to act in the dark. It moves forward even with trembling hands. It walks when motivation would quit. Vision is not fulfilled by those who are excited. It's fulfilled by those who are aligned. Alignment requires obedience, not to people, not to trends, but to the inner call that refuses to be silenced. The call that wakes you up early and keeps you up late. The call that demands progress, not perfection. The call that commands you to obey whether or not you feel like it. Every single day, there is a wall standing between you and your purpose. It's not made of bricks or stone. It's made of excuses, emotions, and hesitation. It doesn't shout or scream. It whispers just loud enough for you to hear, I don't feel like it. That wall is invisible to others, but you know it's there. You face it when the alarm goes off, when it's time to follow through, when your comfort collides with your calling. I don't feel like it is the first enemy of execution. It sounds innocent, even logical. But behind that phrase hides 1,000 missed opportunities, 100 abandoned goals, and a life of potential left on pause. Every time you agree with it, the wall grows thicker. Every time you obey it, you train yourself to negotiate with your destiny. The wall doesn't care how talented you are. It doesn't care how big your dreams are. It's not impressed by your vision board or your affirmations. It only responds to action. And that action must be deliberate. You don't break through that wall by thinking about it. You break it by moving straight through it, even when every fiber of your being is screaming for rest, ease, or delay. Some days, the wall feels like concrete, heavy, unyielding. You wake up drained, distracted, or disconnected. Your body feels sluggish. Your mind is foggy. And right then, the wall appears again, tempting you to step back into the familiar arms of comfort. But comfort never builds legacy. Comfort never leaves impact. Comfort only produces more walls. There's no special formula to avoid the wall. It shows up whether you're rich or broke, disciplined or disorganized. The difference between achievers and quitters isn't the absence of the wall, it's the decision to break it down. And that decision has to be made daily, not weekly, not when it's convenient. Every single day, the choice returns. People often wait for motivation to kick in before they act. They want to feel good before they do good. But the wall of I don't feel like it doesn't respond to feelings, it responds to force. When you take action without permission from your emotions, you send a message to yourself, I run this. And that message builds internal power. Your dream doesn't care about your feelings. The goal you've written down doesn't care if you're tired. The vision burning in your spirit doesn't take breaks because your mood shifted. Purpose doesn't pause for preference. Every breakthrough requires the demolition of that wall again and again until you build the habit of movement. The danger of obeying I don't feel like is that it disguises itself as self-care. But real self-care is doing what's necessary to become who you were born to be, not what's comfortable in the moment. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your future is to ignore the feeling and obey the assignment. Every time you choose action over apathy, the wall weakens. It may not fall completely the first time. It may resist your effort, but with repetition, with consistency, with daily obedience, the wall begins to crack. And once you see a crack, you keep pushing. Because progress never comes from perfection, it comes from persistence. That wall is a test, not just of your ability, but of your will. Will you cave or will you climb? Will you retreat or will you rise? It doesn't matter how strong your intentions are. If you don't act through resistance, you'll live in cycles of regret. The wall will win not because it's powerful, but because you surrendered. Sometimes you have to drag yourself forward. There's no elegance in it, no spotlight, just the grind, the early mornings, the repeated reps, the phone calls, the writing, the planning, the thinking, the showing up again and again. That's where breakthroughs are born, in the ugly moments of deliberate obedience. Most people never fulfill their potential, not because they lack skill, but because they never learn how to beat themselves. The wall of I don't feel like it is not about external circumstances. It's internal resistance. And the only way to defeat it is to override your mood with your mission. Success is not a mystery. It's not reserved for the elite. It's available to anyone willing to master their daily decisions. If you can break that wall today, you can break it tomorrow. And if you can string enough of those days together, you will create a level of momentum that no excuse can stop. There is no secret energy source coming, no divine wave of emotion that will make it easier. You are the source. You are the power. You are the force that must rise up and say, even if I don't feel like it, I do it anyway. Because That's how the wall falls. That's how progress is made. Every act of obedience chips away at the lie that you must feel ready to be effective. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a choice. When you prove to yourself that you can move without emotion, you build the kind of confidence that doesn't fade, the kind that stands strong even when everything else feels weak. This wall is the same wall that has stopped generations before you. People with vision, people with calling, people with potential, all taken out by the same lie. I'll do it later. I'm too tired. I'll wait for the right time. But the right time is never promised. Only right now is. The most powerful life you can live is the one where you move with integrity, not impulse. Where you show up even when your mind resists and your emotions rebel. That's not easy, but neither is regret. And if you're going to feel pain either way, you might as well feel the pain of progress. You might as well break the wall. Success has never belonged to the ones who simply wished for it, talked about it, or dipped their toes in when it felt good. Success has always and only bowed its head to the committed, the ones who made a decision that no matter what came against them, they were going to finish what they started. The committed are different. They don't chase comfort, they chase calling. They don't look for easy, they look for necessary. Comfort is seductive, but it never delivers anything of lasting value. Comfort whispers soft promises. It tells you to rest a little longer, to wait until the timing feels perfect, to avoid the hard conversations and the heavy lifting. But the road to success is paved with discomfort, with early mornings and late nights, with setbacks that test your grit and days when quitting seems reasonable. The comfortable bow to resistance, but the committed break through it. Comfort seeks relief. It wants to avoid pressure. But pressure is part of the process. Pressure refines. Pressure purifies. Pressure develops the internal strength required to carry the weight of real success. The committed understand that discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the environment where champions are made. They don't run from it, they embrace it. Be committed means doing it when you're tired, doing it when you're uninspired, doing it when no one claps, when no one believes, and when nothing seems to be working. Commitment isn't loud, it's not flashy. It's silent dedication behind closed doors when no one is watching and no rewards are promised. The comfortable wait for motivation. The committed build discipline. Comfort says, let's take it easy today. Commitment says, we do it anyway. Comfort says, maybe tomorrow. Commitment says, right now. Every decision is a brick. Every brick builds a life. And only those who lay those bricks daily, whether they feel like it or not, will ever walk through the doors of real success. You don't stumble into greatness by accident. You don't coast your way into mastery. Every success story is the product of countless moments where comfort was an option and commitment won the battle. The people at the top didn't get there because it was easy. They got there because they refused to back down even when comfort begged them to. Comfort is the slow death of potential. It doesn't kill you quickly, it lulls you to sleep. It convinces you that average is acceptable, that good enough is noble, that surviving is the same as thriving. But commitment calls for more. It demands your full attention, your full energy, your full investment. It stretches you beyond your limits and then requires more. Commitment is not convenient. It will interrupt your sleep, your schedule, your relationships, your routines. It will cost you comfort, but what it gives back is far greater. It gives you fulfillment. Not the kind that fades by nightfall, but the kind that comes from knowing you did what most people won't. Comfort tells you to quit when it gets hard, but commitment tells you the hard is the path. That resistance isn't a sign to stop. It's proof you're moving in the right direction. Growth lives on the other side of challenge, and only those who push past the barrier earn the transformation waiting beyond it. The truth is, you can either live for comfort or you can live for calling, but you cannot serve both. One will always sacrifice for the other. If you serve comfort, you'll sacrifice progress. If you serve calling, you'll sacrifice ease, but only one of those will leave you fulfilled at the end of your life. The committed learn to master their emotions. They understand that feelings are temporary, but decisions are powerful. They train themselves to act from commitment, not convenience, to obey their vision, not their comfort zone. And over time, they build a life not based on chance, but on choice. Every time you show up when it's inconvenient, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. Every time you choose the hard thing, you're building a reputation with yourself. You're proving that you can be trusted, that your word means something, that you don't back down when it matters most. Comfort often looks like a gift, but it's a trap. It offers you rest, but robs you of reward. It gives you relief, but steals your reach. It promises peace, but produces passivity. Commitment offers none of those quick fixes, but it delivers something comfort never can. A life of impact, of meaning, of legacy. The committed don't ask, is this easy? They ask, is this right? They don't choose the path of least resistance. They choose the path of purpose. Because purpose isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. The reward doesn't come to those who avoid pain. It comes to those who endure through it. You'll never reach the highest version of yourself without sacrifice. The person you're called to be cannot coexist with a lifestyle built around ease. That version of you is only accessed through fire, through pressure, through stretch. Comfort can't take you there, only commitment can. Comfort has a lot of friends. It's popular. It's celebrated. It's normal. But normal isn't what you were made for. You were made for more, and more always costs something. The comfortable pay nothing, but they gain nothing. The committed pay everything, but they gain it all. When you look at the gap between where you are and where you want to be, ask yourself what you're serving, comfort or commitment, because that choice will determine everything, not just what you achieve, but who you become, not just what you accomplish, but what kind of legacy you leave behind.